The galaxy was full of academies built for the training of warriors, but only one was spoken about in whispers. It was not just a school, it was a battlefield disguised as learning halls, where the daughters of warlords, queens, and generals were sharpened like blades. Every girl in that academy had been raised to kill without mercy, trained from birth to see weakness as a stain, even among the most powerful empires. This place was called dangerous. No boy had ever entered it, and no human had ever been allowed near its gates. Yet one morning, the academy gates opened, and a single human boy walked inside. His name was Daniel. He was not a soldier, not a noble, and not even from a world that the galaxy respected. He was an ordinary boy from a small human colony at the edge of known space. But what made the scene shocking was not just his presence, it was the expression on his face. He walked into the most dangerous class in the galaxy and smiled. The girls noticed instantly. Their eyes were sharp like blades, some glowing with strange alien fire, others cold and merciless. One of them whispered to another, "Why is he smiling? Does he not know he just stepped into his death?" Their voices carried both amusement and hunger. To them, a human boy was fragile prey, something to be broken as a test. But Daniel kept walking as if he did not hear. His smile was calm, not mocking, not foolish, but steady in a way that made even the fiercest hesitate. He sat down at the very center of the class, the seat that no one dared to take, the place reserved for whoever was strongest. The girls looked at each other in silence. No one moved to claim it. The academy master arrived, a tall woman with skin like steel and eyes that glowed red. She scanned the room, then fixed her gaze on Daniel. "Do you know where you are, human?" she asked, her voice like thunder rolling across metal walls. Daniel met her eyes. His smile did not fade. "I know," he said softly, "and I'm ready." The class erupted in laughter. Some pounded their armored fists on the desks. Others hissed like predators. But beneath their noise, something subtle spread, an unease they did not understand. It was not normal for prey to smile in the jaws of the beast. The first lesson began. It was not about numbers or words. It was combat. The academy taught through blood. And every new student was tested on the first day. The master raised her hand, and one of the fiercest girls stepped forward. Her armor shimmered with shifting light, and in her hands, she held twin blades that hissed with energy. She was the daughter of a warlord who had conquered 3 systems before she was born. She looked at Daniel like a hawk looked at a rabbit. "Stand," the master commanded. Daniel rose slowly. He did not reach for a weapon, for he had none. The girl laughed at him, the sharp sound cutting through the air. "You came here to die, human, but at least you will give me practice." The fight began in a flash. She lunged, her blades moving like lightning, the air sizzling around her strikes. But Daniel moved differently than anyone expected. He did not match her strength or speed. He stepped aside, bent low, let the strike pass, and turned her own momentum against her. He was not faster than her, but he was clever, and cleverness had saved him many times before. The class fell silent. The girl struck again and again, her fury rising. But Daniel dodged, blocked with his bare arms at impossible angles, twisted away at the last instant. It was like watching a dance where one partner refused to follow the steps. Stop. At last, he caught her wrist, pulled, and sent her sprawling to the floor. The sound echoed in the hall. For a moment, no one moved. Then the girls gasped, some in shock, some in anger, some in admiration. A human boy had just thrown down the daughter of a warlord on his first day. The master narrowed her eyes. Her lips curved, not into a smile, but into something dangerous. She had seen many fighters, but none who carried such calm in the face of death. Daniel's smile had not left his face through the entire fight. The girl rose, humiliated but not broken. Her eyes burned as she looked at him. "This is not over, human." Daniel only nodded, still calm, still steady. His smile was not arrogance, it was something else. Something the galaxy did not yet understand. The master spoke again. Perhaps this academy will be more interesting than I thought. The room of dangerous girls stared at the boy who dared to smile among them. For the first time in the academy's long history, the air was not filled with certainty of victory. It was filled with questions. And Daniel, the human boy, sat back, down in the center seat as if he had belonged there all along. The silence in the academy did not last long. The girls whispered among themselves, their voices sharp like knives. Some spoke of humiliating the human boy to restore their pride, while others watched him with curious eyes for the first time. They were not united in scorn. Daniel had unsettled them, and that alone was dangerous. During the break between lessons, Daniel walked calmly through the training hall. The floor was marked with scars from countless battles. The walls were lined with weapons of alien design, humming faintly with energy. The girls leaned against the walls, some glaring at him, others studying him like a puzzle they could not solve. He carried no weapon, wore no armor, and yet he had stood against one of their best. A tall girl with violet skin and golden tattoos stepped forward. She was older than the rest, her movements smooth and confident. She was known as Lyra, the strongest fighter in the academy, a name that many feared to speak aloud. She tilted her head, her piercing eyes locking on Daniel. "You fought without fear," she said, her voice calm but heavy with power. "But fear keeps us alive. Without it, you will die." Daniel met her gaze and gave the same steady smile. "Maybe. But fear also blinds. I see better without it," the girls murmured again, some scoffing, others nodding. Lyra studied him for a long moment, then turned away without another word. But Daniel noticed the small curve at the edge of her lips. She was not laughing at him. She was interested. When the second lesson began, the academy master called for group combat. It was a brutal exercise designed to tear the weak apart and harden the strong. Teams were formed, and Daniel found himself surrounded by 3 alien girls with cold eyes. They had decided to test him together. The signal rang, and they attacked. At once, blades flashed, claws tore through the air, and energy whips cracked with a sound like thunder. Daniel moved, not with the speed of a predator, but with the rhythm of a survivor. He ducked under the whip, rolled aside from the blade, and used the momentum of one attacker to block the strike of another. Every move was simple, but every move was right. The watching students shouted, their voices filling the hall. They had expected the human to be crushed, yet he endured. He was bruised, his breath sharp, but his smile did not fade. He did not fight to dominate, nor to destroy. He fought to endure, to survive, to remind them that humans were not as weak as they thought. At last, one of the girls lunged afar. Daniel sidestepped, hooked her leg, and she tumbled into her teammate. Both crashed to the floor in a tangle of armor. The third hesitated for a fraction of a second, and in that space, Daniel closed the distance, pressed his hand to her wrist, and forced her to drop her weapon. The fight was over. The hall fell silent again. The academy master's red eyes glowed brighter. She said nothing, but her gaze lingered on Daniel longer than before. Something about him unsettled even her. Later, when the lesson ended, Daniel sat alone at the edge of the hall. His body ached, but his spirit was calm. He remembered the words of his father back on the colony. Smile even when they want you to. Fear them. That smile will break them before your strength does. As he sat, a shadow fell across him. Lyra stood there, arms folded, eyes sharp. "You should not be here," she said softly. "This academy eats the weak, and no matter how calm you look, you are still human. You are fragile." Daniel looked up at her, his smile faint but steady. "Maybe fragile," he admitted. "But even fragile things can cut deep if handled right." For the first time, Lyra's stern face softened. She leaned closer, her voice low so no one else could hear. "Be careful, human. There are those here who will not rest until you are broken, and some of them do not fight fair." Daniel nodded. "I know, that's why I keep smiling." When Lyra left, Daniel looked around the hall. The other girls were still watching him, some with anger, some with amusement, and some with the faintest spark of respect. For the first time in the Academy's history, the dangerous daughters of the galaxy's rulers did not see a victim. They saw a mystery, and mysteries, in a place like this, were always dangerous. The next day began with tension. The Academy halls, usually echoing with the confident footsteps of alien warriors, now buzzed with whispers about the human boy. Daniel had lasted through the first day, and that alone had shaken the class. But survival was never enough here. Every day brought harsher tests, and the masters never repeated the same lesson twice. That morning, the Academy master strode into the hall with her eyes glowing brighter than before. She carried a staff that pulsed with energy, a weapon older than the Academy itself. Today, she announced, you will not fight each other, you will fight the machines. The walls split open, and tall armored constructs stepped out. Their eyes glowed crimson, their bodies made of heavy metal plates and sharp edges. They were training drones. But they were no less deadly. Many students had been injured facing them. A few had not returned. The class reacted with excitement, some with nervousness. The girls prepared their weapons, each eager to prove themselves. Daniel stood at the edge, calm, watching the machines with quiet focus. The master called out, pairs, each of you will fight with a partner. Let us see how you survive together. Whispers filled the air again. None of the alien girls wanted to be paired with Daniel. To fight beside him was to risk humiliation. But then, Lyra stepped forward, the strongest in the class, marked by her violet skin and gold and tattoos, spoke in a voice that silenced the hall. I will fight with him, the class gasped. Even, the master tilted her head slightly, as if intrigued. Lyra met Daniel's eyes, and though her face was stern, he could see a flicker of curiosity there. The battle began. One of the machines thundered forward, its heavy steps shaking the floor. Lyra leapt into action, her blade flashing with golden light. She struck fast and hard, her movements elegant and deadly. Daniel moved beside her. But unlike her, he did not try to match power with the machine. He dodged its swings, stayed light, on his feet, and used the environment to his advantage. Where Lyra struck with fire, he moved like water dot at one point. The machine swung a massive arm down toward Lyra. She blocked, but the force drove her to her knees. Daniel darted in, jamming a piece of broken metal into the machine's joint. Sparks flew, and the machine's arm slowed for a precious second. Lyra rose and slashed deep into its chest, tearing it apart. The girls watching from the sidelines stared in disbelief. A human had saved their strongest fighter not by brute strength, but by quick thinking. The fight did not end there. Another machine attacked, larger and faster. Lyra and Daniel moved together, their movements slowly finding rhythm. She was the blade, sharp and unyielding. He was the hand that guided, steady and precise. The machine fell piece by piece until it collapsed in a smoking heap. The hall shook with noise. Some students hissed in anger, unable to accept what they had seen. Others stared in silence, their pride fighting with the truth before their eyes. When the battle was over, Lyra stood tall, breathing hard. She looked at Daniel, her face unreadable. Then, for the first time, she gave him a small nod of respect. The Academy master's voice cut through the air. Interesting, very interesting. Perhaps the human is not as fragile as we believed. Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow, his smile still present. He did not gloat, did not boast. He simply looked around the hall as if he belonged there, and somehow, that unsettled the girls more than his victories. Later, as the students rested, one of the younger girls approached him. She had silver hair and eyes that glowed faintly blue. She was smaller than the others, but her gaze was sharp. Why do you smile, human? She asked softly. Even when you bleed, even when you are close to death, why do you smile? Daniel thought for a moment, then answered, because smiling reminds me that I'm still alive, and if I'm alive, then I haven't lost yet. The girl stared at him, speechless. She turned and hurried back to the others, whispering his words. Soon the whole hall buzzed with the strange philosophy of the human boy. the galaxy's deadliest. Daughters had seen many warriors, but never one who fought with a smile. For the first time, they began to wonder if the academy was no longer the same place it had always been, and Daniel, sitting quietly at the edge, knew his greatest weapon was not his strength, but the effect his calm presence had on them all. By the fourth day, the academy had become a storm of emotion. Every student carried pride as sharp as their blades, yet now the pride was shaken. Daniel's presence had turned their training halls into something different. He was not the strongest, not the fastest, and yet he endured where others thought he would fall, and that smile, calm and steady, haunted them. The academy master decided to test him further. That morning, her voice echoed through the hall. Today, you will face the hunt. The hunt was one of the academy's most brutal traditions. Students were released into the forests that stretched around the academy's outer walls. Vast jungles filled with predators, hidden traps, and ancient ruins. The goal was simple: survive until dawn while being hunted by other students. Many feared it, but all respected it. It separated the strong from the weak. When the signal horn sounded, the students scattered into the shadows of the forest. Some moved like ghosts through the trees. Others thundered ahead like beasts. Daniel stepped quietly into the jungle, his eyes sharp, his ears tuned to every sound. He knew he would not only face the dangers of the wild, but also the blades of his classmates. It did not take long. He heard the rustle of movement, the faint hiss of energy blades cutting the air. A trio of girls surrounded him, their armor glowing faintly in the moonlight that cut through the branches. You should have never come here, human, one of them sneered. Now we finish what should have ended on the first day. Daniel's smile did not fade. If you think you can, then try. The fight began. The girls moved like shadows, fast and merciless. Daniel had no weapon, only a length of sturdy wood he had picked from the forest floor. But in his hands, it became more than a stick. It became a shield, a staff, a tool to redirect every strike. He used their speed against them, letting them trip over roots, forcing them into each other's pots. When one lunged, he sidestepped, and she slammed into a tree with a grunt. Still, the fight was brutal. Cuts burned across his arms. His breath grew heavy, and his body screamed in pain. Yet he endured, and always, through the pain, he smiled. By the time the girls retreated, their pride broken, Daniel stood bleeding but unbowed. But the hunt was not over. The jungle itself seemed alive, full of eyes that glowed in the dark. A low growl rumbled behind him, deeper than thunder. Daniel turned to see one of the wild predators, a beast of muscle and fangs, its body armored with scales that shimmered in the moonlight. Many students had fallen to such creatures during the hunt. Daniel's heart pounded, but he stood his ground. He remembered his colony home. Werewolves hunted the fields at night. He remembered standing with only a knife and a torch, facing them down. This was no different. He held the staff tight, every muscle ready. The beast lunged. Daniel rolled aside. The air split by its jaws. He jabbed the staff into its side, not to kill but to drive it away. The creature roared, snapping at him again and again. But he kept moving, refusing to give ground. Finally, with a well-timed strike to its eye, the beast shrieked and bolted into the shadows. Exhausted, Daniel dropped to his knees. His body shook, but his smile remained. And then, he was not alone. From the trees stepped Lyra, her golden tattoos glowing faintly in the moonlight. She had watched. Her sword was still sheathed, her expression unreadable. You fought the beast, she said. Daniel looked up at her, breathing hard. I didn't fight it. I convinced it to leave me alone. For the first time, Lyra's stern face softened. Her lips curved into something that almost looked like a smile. Strange human, she murmured. Strange, but not weak. She extended her hand and helped him to his feet. The other girls watching from the shadows saw it the strongest warrior of the academy showing recipe. CT to a human boy whispers. Would spread by dawn. By the time the horn sounded to end the hunt, Daniel was still standing, bruised, bleeding, but alive and in the galaxy's deadliest academy. That alone was victory. The Hun had changed everything. By the next day, whispers filled every corner of the academy. Some of the girls spoke of Daniel with grudging respect, others with deep resentment. To them, he had stolen honor that belonged to their kind. They had trained all their lives. Yet the human boy had survived battles, machines, and even the jungles, beasts, and he had done it all with that same calm smile. The academy master sensed the tension. She stood before the class, her glowing eyes sweeping over them. "Conflict grows among you," she said. "Good. Conflict makes warriors. Today, you will face a test of unity. You will fight as one against a greater enemy. If you cannot work together, you will die." The walls opened again. And this time, not just machines emerged. A massive creature was released into the hollow war beast bred for destruction. Its body a mountain of armored scales, its jaws lined with rows of sharp teeth. Even the fiercest of the alien girls drew back slightly. The beast roared, the ground trembling beneath its weight. The master's voice boomed, "Defeat it together, or be crushed." The students spread out, forming loose lines, but already their pride showed. Each girl wanted to strike the first blow, to claim victory. Their attacks crushed against the beast's hide, bright sparks flying. But the creature only grew angrier. Its tail swung like a giant whip, sending two girls crashing into the wall. Daniel stood back, watching. He saw the mistake instantly. They were not fighting as a unit. They were fighting as rivals. Each strike was wasted, each effort undone by another's arrogance. He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos, "You're fighting each other, not the beast. If you don't work together, it will kill us all." Some ignored him. Others snarled. But then, Lyra's voice rang out. "Listen to him." The whole fell into a brief silence at her command. Daniel stepped forward, pointing to the beast's legs. "It's strong, but slow. We need to bring it down. Strike the joints, make it fall." Lyra distracted. The rest, circle its legs. It was madness to take orders from a human. Yet somehow, they listened. Perhaps it was because Lyra obeyed. She darted forward, her blade glowing as she slashed at the beast's eyes. Drawing its fury, the others moved to the legs, hacking and striking as Daniel guided them. The beast roared, thrashing. But step by step it weakened. At last, it stumbled, crashing to the ground with a thunder that shook the academy walls. The students swarmed it, striking together in a way they never had before. In moments, the beast lay still, breathing hard. The girls stood in stunned silence. Daniel's plan had worked. They had defeated something that could have killed them all. And they had done it by listening to a human boy. The master stepped forward, her steel-like face unreadable. Her gaze lingered on Daniel. "Strange, you fight without fear, but more dangerous than that you make others follow you." Some of the girls looked at Daniel with new respect, others with quiet anger. To follow him had saved their lives, but pride burned deep in their hearts. Later, in the quiet of the resting hall, Daniel sat alone, tending to the bruises on his arms. The silver-haired girl who had questioned him before approached again. Her blue glowing eyes studied him closely. "Why do you help us?" she asked. "You could have stood back and let us fail." Daniel smiled faintly. "Because if one falls, we all fall. And if we survive together, maybe we learn something greater than just killing." Her eyes widened slightly at his words. She turned, walking back to the others. Soon, his words spread again. "Carry on," whispers like sparks through dry grass. That night, half the academy lay awake, restless. Some hated him more than ever. Others wondered if perhaps the human was teaching them something none of their empires had ever taught: how to fight not just for pride, but for each other. And as Daniel closed his eyes to rest, he knew the real battle had only begun. The academy had never been so divided. Some of the alien girls wanted Daniel gone, seeing him as an insult to their legacy. Others whispered that he had shown them a strength they had never known. His calm smile had become both a threat and a beacon. The Academy Master sensed this storm and decided it was time for the ultimate test. She gathered the class in the Great Hall, her voice cold and final. War does not wait for pride. Today, you will face death together. Beyond these walls lies the trial of fire. It will decide who belongs here and who does not. The gates opened, revealing a vast arena carved into the rock. Flames roared from vents in the ground, and towering machines armed with weapons of war waited. The air itself seemed alive with heat and danger. The girls armed themselves with blades, shields, and energy weapons. Daniel carried nothing but a staff he had carved from the jungle during the hunt. When the horn sounded, chaos exploded. The machines advanced, firing bolts of searing light. The ground shook beneath their steps. At once, the alien girl scattered, each striking where she thought she could claim victory. But the machines were merciless. Their beams cut through armor. Their fists slammed into the earth like hammers. The students were nearly crushed before Daniel's shout rang out. Together. Don't scatter, focus on one at a time. Again, it seemed foolish to listen to a human, yet in the storm of fire, his voice was steady, and Lyra, the strongest, obeyed first. With her at his side, others followed. Soon, their attacks fell in unison, blades and whips striking the same joints, until the first machine collapsed in fire. The crowd of students roared not in pride, but in something deeper. For once, they were not rivals, they were a unit. Machine after machine fell. Daniel moved through the chaos, not leading with power, but with clarity. He pointed out weaknesses, pulled the injured to safety, and filled the gaps when lines broke. His body bled, his strength faltered, but his smile never left. It was a promise that as long as he stood, they would not fall. At last, the final machine rose, larger than the rest, its form towering above the arena. Its cannon glowed with a charge that could kill half the class in a single blast. The students froze, fear clutching even the fiercest hearts. Daniel stepped forward, his staff shook in his hands, his body trembling, but his eyes burned with calm fire. He turned to the girls. If we don't stand together now, we die, all of us. Lyra's voice rose behind him. Then we stand with the human. A cry erupted from the class, fierce and wild. For the first time, the deadliest daughters of the galaxy fought not as rivals, but as sisters. They surged forward, striking in perfect unity. The machine fired, but Daniel leapt ahead, slamming his staff into the cannon's joint. The blast veered upward, exploding harmlessly into the sky. The others struck its legs, its chest, its head. Together, they brought it crashing down. The arena fell silent, smoke rising from the wreckage. The students stood bloodied and battered, but alive. Every eye turned to Daniel. His body shook. His clothes were torn, yet his smile was still there. The Academy Master stepped forward for the first time. Her steel-like face softened. Strange human, she said slowly, you came here as prey, but you leave here as something more. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but the one who taught the deadliest warriors in the galaxy what it means to fight as one. The girls looked at each other, their pride humbled. Then, one by one, they bowed their heads to Daniel. Even Lyra, the strongest, bent her knee. Daniel stood in the center of them all, smiling faintly. He had not come to conquer, nor to prove himself above them. He had only come to survive. But in surviving, he had changed them. And in the galaxy's deadliest class, a human boy's smile had become a legend.